This is Catherine Parker from The Haunting of Hill House. You're listening to Derek Thomas and the Monday Morning Critic podcast.
E.T. phone home.
Does this mean they're coming?
Yes. E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home. Phone home.
Quiet.
Phone. E.T. phone home. Phone home. E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home. E.T. phone home.
My next guest filmography includes E.T., The Howling, and Cujo, among the many movies she's done before. She's very inspiring. She's very brave. She's very talented. Her name is Dee Wallace. Dee, thank you so much for giving me some time out of your very busy schedule today.
I am thrilled to be here with you, sir. Thank you.
So there's so much here. And I know that I told you this off air briefly. I said, I went in thinking, I love this person's work as an actor, and you're still kicking butt as an actor, by the way. And
thank you.
And I came to the realization that, this phenomenal actor is even a better human being, and we're going to get to why in a few moments. But my goodness, Dee, I'm blown away by what you do in your life.
Me too, and I love it, and thank you for that. Yes.
So, you're born in Kansas. You're a Jayhawk. You go on to the University of Kansas, which is phenomenal, right?
Yep.
Education degree. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been if you because you were a teacher at a high school, I believe. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like had you continued down that path?
Oh, I would like to think that it would have been just as fulfilling in an entirely different way. I love to teach. I'm kind of a natural teacher, and I taught a year of high school and then left to seek my fame and fortune in New York. But I've had my own dance studio. I had my own acting studio out here for 18 years. I teach in all my healing work now. I just love to teach. I love to see people expand and move into their power, and any way that I can be a part of that, whether it's as an actress or a teacher or teaching people to live conscious lives, I love that. That kind of, is what keeps me going.
Yeah, I mean, and things aren't easy for you at the time, right? Because you have, you lose dad, and I just lost my dad, so I get what it's like. I mean, it's not.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I appreciate that. It's not an easy thing. I mean, your brother suffers through some adversity, and I'm going to touch on this later as well. You're kind of a person, and I'm saying this because it's amazing. On screen and off screen, you're kind of the person that people always look to kind of, I don't want to say save them, but to help them is that a fair assessment, Dee?
When you say it that way, I can stand behind that statement, because that's my intention, is to love and help empower people. And I think I do that. I know I do that every day in my life, because that's the conscious, choice that I've made. So whether it's in my acting or, like, let's just take Cujo or E.T., both of those were about mothers and what they would go through to protect their child and their children, and teach them and love them, give up her life for them if she had to. And it's a theme that's very close to my heart, because I know from my teaching that everything is about love. And if you just bring yourself back to love, you will have the answer. And I think a lot of us have forgotten that. We're so involved these days in our judgment on social media and everything and judging everybody. And as soon as you move into judgment, you move out of love.
Oh, true.
And I think you're seeing a world that's being consumed with that lesson right now, that the judgment and the hate doesn't work. It's not working. We're going down, and we're going down pretty fast. And we are consciously in every moment at the choice of raising ourselves back up into love and positivity in the world we want to live in.
No, that's so beautifully said. And you know, you're referred to as, you know, the scream queen, but I got to tell you, you're so much more than that. It's not even funny. Like you are so eclectic, and you are a life coach now. You're still acting, and I have to say, you know, when I see these life coaches, many of them, without getting negative, I don't always sense a sincerity to them. But with you, my goodness, Dee, you were talking, I've watched a ton of your videos this past week. My God, you get through to your audience, and it comes from a place of honesty and love, and people can tell that. It's not forced, it's not fake, and I think that's one of the things I appreciate most about what you're doing right now.
Well, first of all, I applaud you that you really did your homework and did all that. I'm so appreciative because, you know, I do probably 30 interviews at least a month, and that's not always the case. So thank you for that respect. You know, I proudly will adopt the crown of Scream Queen, and yes, I do a lot of other things in my life. But again, in everything I do, I think the most important thing is to be authentic and be who you really are. Because people can tell in a performance when you're not really there, and they can certainly tell in your performance of life if you're full of BS and you don't really care about them.
No, that is so well said, and there's a couple other things I want to touch on with your life coach, because your position as in your profession as a life coach, because I like a lot of what you're saying and doing, but I want to work my way there a little bit. So we all know you have 200 plus film credits. You study with two legendary people, Uta Hagen and Charles Conrad. My gosh, like, how much do you take out of that? Like, the actor that you are today, Dee, right? How much of it is as a result of what those two individuals did for you?
Huge, especially Charles. I mean, I loved studying with Uta Hagen. She's an icon, and she believed in me right from the start. But when I found Charles, I found the technique that spoke to me and opened up my talent. And at the time, it was revolutionary. No one was teaching the technique that Charles was teaching. And in a nutshell, it's based on getting your energy exceptionally high, throwing your energy toward whatever it is you're working with, whether it's a monster or a person or a beautiful scene that you're looking at, and then really not thinking, not working on it, but being there 100% in the moment. I would have never gotten through Cujo without this technique.
No, and I was that's well said, Dee. And I was going to say, when I look at your work, he's almost like the perfect acting coach for what you've done. And I mean, obviously, you're much more than horror, and I get that, but he's almost like an acting coach that was perfectly suited for you.
Oh yeah, he gave me my freedom because even when I used to write my themes in school. And they'd want you in high school, make the breakdown and make the outline. I never could do any of that. I just had to sit down and write the darn thing, right? And acting is the same way for me. But again, this is a definite technique. But the less I think about stuff in the script, the better my performance is, because what Dee would do is not necessarily what Mary or Donna would do. I mean, if I had sat down and really worked on the reaction to no penis breath talk in my house, I seriously doubt that if I'd worked that too much, I would have chosen to laugh about it. And it's so right, and it's so normal, and it's so what mothers do, right?
Yes.
And I send blessings to Charles. We lost him 3 or 4 years ago. Fortunately, I tracked him down and was able to talk to him before he made his passing. And he was the same. I used to call him Chuck. And he was just the same irreverent, beautiful, creative person. Yes, I will be indebted to him forever for opening up this amazing technique for me.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, are you familiar with the show? It's a couple of years back, but the show Wonder Years. Do you remember that show?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I have to say, I love my parents, obviously, but if I had to pick a TV/movie mom and dad, I would have picked Dan Lauria, the dad from Wonder Years, who's also been on this show, and I certainly would have picked you. So that's the effect that you guys have, I think, not only on me, but on many of your fans with the work that you put forth. I never once doubted how much you cared for those kids. It just screams genuine. It's so authentic, Dee. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
Well, aren't you sweet? Thank you. I really do take pride. I think that's my job for my fans, is to be in the moment and be as authentic and honest, whether I'm running from a monster or I'm putting a kid to bed. If I'm really there as the character, then the audience has got to come along on that ride with me.
Yeah, and before I get to 3 of the most amazing movies maybe of all time, you have some other work that in your interviews I wish people would talk about more. I mean, they might be smaller parts, but these shows are legendary, like Simon and Simon and Chips and Heart to Heart and Taxi and Barnaby Jones. People don't talk about that enough too, because those shows are absolutely legendary.
Well, yeah, and that was the beginning. I mean, every actor pretty much starts in small independent films or guest stars on TV, and that was my training ground, for my later work. And I mean, those were the golden days where an actor, if I did a show on TV and they liked me and I liked them, you knew you were going to do that show every year. Now they've got this, belief that once you've done the show, you can't be back on it in another character. I did 5 Murders, She Wrote, right? So I think it's kind of too bad that we crossed over into that, because there's so many good shows. I just had the opportunity of doing NCIS with Mark Harmon.
Wow.
It aired, I think, a couple of months ago. I'm telling you, it was one of the loveliest experiences I've had in a long time. He was fabulous. He runs an amazing show with kind people. The whole set is just harmonious, and it was just a beautiful experience for me. And, I would love to go back and do another one as another character next season or something, but I don't think they do that anymore.
No, it's...
But I said to Mark, no, but you've got a lot of other shows you produced, dude.
and I look at you had a 3-year span. Obviously, you're still, like I mentioned, you're still a very successful, very working actor. But I have to say, I look at this 3-year stretch, and I can't wait to hear it from you. But I've read what you've said about the toll that filming Cujo took on you. But even before that, I mean, you had the Howling in '81, E.T. in '82. You make the jump to Cujo in '83. you had to be absolutely exhausted, Dee. I mean, it's a good thing that you were working, and millions of actors would have traded places with you. But how exhausted were you at the end of that 3-year stretch, specifically because Cujo took such a toll on you?
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't get exhausted because I'm doing what I love until I did Cujo. And my God, it was relentless. It was the hardest thing I have ever tackled in my life. They treated me for exhaustion.
Wow.
For 3 months. Well, no, not 3 months, 3 weeks after I finished shooting. But, I mean, when you're working with a 6-year-old kid and a dog, you've got to be on every single solitary second, because when they're lucky enough to get the kid and the dog in the same scene working together and it all works, you better believe you better be on, because they're going to print that whether you're the best you can be or not. So, it was just a real labor of love for all of us, and just the vehicle that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, and you're kind of the it almost reminds me of a quarterback of a football team. While the director's phenomenal, you have these other great pieces of the film, you're kind of holding it together, because like you said, you're dealing with the unpredictability of a child and the dog. My gosh, I mean, that alone would send somebody over the edge. But then, did you find, Dee, that it was that which added to your exhaustion? Was it just the nature of the film? Was it just everything combined that just really kind of... I
think it was everything combined, because I was pretty much in every single scene. We were working, most people think we were dying of the heat. Actually, we were really cold. It was in Northern California. And the rainy season, so we were working around that. But they would pick me up at 5 a.m. every morning. I was lucky if I got home by 8 or 8:30. And, every time you see a relentless scene in Cujo, which is 3/4 of the film, you have to understand that we had to shoot it 4, 5, or 6, sometimes 10 times in order to get the dog, and Danny and I working together, and then all the close-ups, and it's exhausting. And, but at the same time, it's so rewarding and challenging. But it's an experience you always have to be on your toes, not to let down and not to let your energy down.
Yeah, and
that's our job for our fans. Yeah,
and then you've got the young kid, the child actors biting you for real. That doesn't feel great, I assume. Yeah,
he really got into it, and my hand wasn't supposed to be able to break the back of the Pinto. That was all. They never take into account the adrenaline that runs through an actor. Right.
Yeah, and safe to say that you never want to see a Ford Pinto again in your life, right? I mean, if you ever come across...
Ever. Never.
So I have to say, Stephen King said that your performance, and I'm sure you've heard this before, as Donna Trent is the best of any adaptation of his books. And for those of you listening, keep in mind, this is the same man who did The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, Misery. When he says your performance is the best from any adaptation of his books, that's got to be the highest praise on the planet, right?
You bet, especially for a film like Cujo. And I am very grateful and indebted to Stephen for coming forward to say that.
Yeah,
it means a lot to me.
And just moving our way over to E.T., I love your quote. And I think it was you that said it was our generation's Wizard of Oz, right? I think that's what you said?
Yep.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and then some. Why do you think, maybe as a fan too, that it hits home? Because I don't think there's a person that says, boy, I didn't like E.T. Like, it is the most universally, I feel like, appreciated movie maybe ever made.
I agree with that, and it's still changing lives and reaching people's hearts. And, it's when you see E.T., there's something about it that just transcends our limitations and our judgments. And I have stories of autistic young boys who were like 10, and their mother had never heard them speak. and they went to see E.T., and on the way home they started saying every line that E.T. said.
Wow.
Can you imagine that miracle in a mother's life where you've never heard your child say anything? And they see it just reaches in us and brings up something about the truth that we all know.
Yeah, and I have to say, I rewatched it this weekend knowing I must watch it once a month, but I rewatched it again knowing I was going to speak with you. And Dee, this is so embarrassing. Like, a grown man, my girlfriend's looking at me like I'm insane. I'm like weeping. There's a scene where Henry Thomas is playing with his Star Wars figures, and it's not just one or two scenes that I was crying at. I mean, it's like the whole movie, and I want to say they're tears of joy. A lot of which because it's an unbelievable movie, but also because it's a time that's, I don't want to say long gone. That makes me sound old, but I don't know. I just feel like there's sentimental value to this film. It's nostalgia. It's beautiful for so many reasons.
Yes, I agree, and don't feel bad. I've probably seen it over 200 times, and I cry every time I watch it. So it's just that kind of film.
Yeah, when you work with Henry Thomas and Drew Barrymore when they were kids, did you know that they were special? Do you know that right away?
Oh, sure. I work with a lot of kids, and they were special. They'd been raised well. Henry was just the sweetest kid on earth. For me to be able to work with Henry and Danny Pintaro in the same career, I feel really blessed, and I mean that.
Yeah, I'm sure they would say the same thing about you. And, I have to say Henry Thomas plays, and I'm going a little bit off track here, but he plays a wonderful father in The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, and he's so good.
Oh, isn't it great?
Oh, yeah. My God. He talk about tears, my goodness gracious.
It's a great series.
Yeah, and Dee, I wanted to ask you, we see Steven Spielberg on the outside. We know the great stories. We know the great human being. From the inside, what is he like? Because you obviously deal with him. He obviously thinks the world of you. How would you talk about him to somebody who maybe doesn't know working with him?
Well, actually, I don't have much of a relationship with Steven after the shooting of the film.
Right.
But he was like kind of a father figure to everybody is the best way I can explain it. The kids that go in and play video games with him, and he's brilliant in knowing exactly what he wants and hiring the people that he can give it to and communicating to his actors in a way that doesn't put you in a box, that allows you to still be free and play and, bring some of your best stuff in.
Yeah, and one of the things that people, I think, maybe realize but don't spend a lot of time or focus on, and they should, and obviously divorce is huge in life, right? And he spends a lot of time in his movies. He doesn't address divorce really, but he does with the whole theme of the movie. He addresses absent fathers. I mean, he doesn't get enough credit for that, I feel like, Dee. Like, that's a lot of these kids watching these movies in the 80s or even today can relate to that and are, I don't want to say thankful, but like they know.
Oh,
that.
yeah, I actually have guys coming up to my table. One guy, he was in his 20s, maybe early 30s, and he said, Dee, I lived in this little tiny town, and my parents got divorced, and I was an outcast. My friends wouldn't talk to me, and E.T. came out, and all of a sudden, it was okay. I was accepted again. I mean, we don't realize the power that a film can have in all our lives, and E.T. has touched people across the world.
And continues. I mean, when do you ever see a movie last in a theater for a year? Many movies are in there for 2 weeks and gone. E.T. was in the cinemas for 1 full year. That in itself, Dee, is unbelievable.
Yep.
I
think that's a record.
Yeah.
Sure.
When I was doing some research here, I found a few obscure things. Like, I never knew E.T.'s face was a combination of Einstein, a pug, and Carl Sandburg. Like, that, I couldn't stop laughing when I read that. Like, that is so insane. But then when I looked at him, I'm like, that makes sense.
Whatever it's a combination of, Carl Rambaldi created an amazingly real but emotionally available character out of rubber. I mean, that's brilliance in itself. And let's face it, if E.T. didn't have that, we wouldn't have had a film.
No, absolutely. And I just, you said it before. I think, and I've talked about this with other guests, with friends I have, I do think movies and certain television shows can be life-changing. You know, people embrace these shows. You mentioned you go to Comic-Cons. Do you still go to a lot of Comic-Cons, Dee, or is it sporadic?
I don't do many Comic-Cons. I'm doing the one in San Diego coming up. I'm going down for the studio.
Wow.
For Critters, which airs on Sci-Fi in September, and 3 from Hell, Rob Zombie's 3 from Hell, comes out in September, and Critters comes out in October on Sci-Fi. So it's going to be a busy fall for me. But I do a lot of the horror conventions, and I love it. I love meeting the fans and getting the stories and see product. You'd think I would have seen every product out there in 30 years, but nope. The fans still find some new stuff to bring me, which is incredible. So I love doing everything I do. I mean, today I've done already 2 private healing sessions and 3 interviews. I'm going for a meeting with my agents. I'm coming back. I've got another healing session, and then tonight another big interview. So it's a crazy day. It's all over the place. I go from my healing to my acting to interviewing to auditioning, and I love it all, and I wouldn't change anything.
No, and you mentioned, by the way, San Diego Comic-Con is amazing, so congratulations. I'm so happy for your continued success in so many areas, but, you know, you mentioned Rob Zombie. He's used you, I want to say, in 2 of his movies so far. Am I right with that, or is it 1?
3.
3? Oh, well, 2 plus 1. But one thing I really love about Rob Zombie is his appreciation for the past and his appreciation for the horror genre, which I absolutely can appreciate on so many levels.
Yes.
You know?
And he is very dedicated to honoring the icons in the industry. He sure is. And he's the nicest damn guy. Oh my God, I just love Rob, and I love working with him. Just love him.
Yeah, and did you prefer, so is it just that you're an actor, you'll do what you believe is, you know, interesting to you, or do you prefer one genre over another, right? Because people know you from horror, but I've also seen you do dramas.
I just want a good script with a really good part, and the more emotional arcs that part has in it, the happier I am.
Yeah, and you mentioned you've seen it all, right? When it comes to fans, whether it's something nostalgic they bring for you to sign or something they talk to you about, do they ever catch you off guard emotionally, right? So where you're like, oh my God, this is the first time I've seen or talked about this in 30 or 40. Like, do they ever catch you off guard in that regard to the point where...
You know, the biggest thing that affects me emotionally is when somebody comes by the table and wants to talk about Christopher Stone, my late husband, and all the work that we did together, and they've made a drawing of him for me, or see, I'm getting a little kerflump just talking about it.
No, yeah, I mean that's I have a feeling that you're so appreciated at these cons because you're so sincere. Because there's many actors, like not many, but some that only go because they're forced to go. You are one of these people that just loves being around people. You're a people person. And I think fans see that and they love that about you, Dee.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because I really take pride in giving to my fans, loving my fans, spending time with them, talking to them, helping them. A lot of my fans come by and said, Dee, do you have time to do some healing work for me? And that's all very gratifying, I love them, and I love interacting with them.
So one of the things I did see in researching your life was this beautiful TED Talk, and I hope other interviewers have brought this up to you because the comments that follow this TED Talk, Dee, are unbelievable. Like, thank you, Dee, and it's just a really moving TED Talk. Just talk a little bit about that.
TED Talks was a big dream of mine. I love them. I find them all very valuable. And so I wanted to create one, which I did last year. And I really wanted to educate people on how much our little child is running the show. Our brains are pretty much in place by the time we're 7 years old around our self-worth and how we see our self-worth in the world. And so I use a lot of, as you saw, very personal examples from my own life about how they were holding me back, all these beliefs that I got from 7 years old all the way back to conception, and how they were running my life now and limiting me from what I wanted to be doing. And I had a couple of psychologists come up to me afterwards and said, Dee, I do this work. I do this work with clients every day. I never have heard it explained from this perspective. And both of them said, we were sitting in the audience and I'm going, oh my God, that's why I can't do this. Oh my God, I know what that belief is now. So I, first of all, again, thank you for doing your job so well and listening to all this. And just, I think people would really be able to open up their lives. You just go to YouTube and put in Dee Wallace. I believe the title is Conscious Creation. And watch it. It's only 19 minutes long, guys, and it could possibly help change your life.
Oh, it's beautifully done. And the very last thing I wanted to bring up is your daughter, Gabrielle Stone, who, if the book is any good as this fantastic title, she has a hit on her hands. It's available.
It is. I guarantee you, everybody, men and women, are going to love this book. We're ecstatic about how many guys are calling and writing and going, oh my God, I read this book because I have to review it. And I learned so much, and I love the read. I mean, it's all about, in 1 year, we found out that the guy she'd been married to for a year and a half had been having an affair for 6 months. She went through a tough divorce, fell madly in love with another guy who said, oh, you have to come to Europe with me. 2 days before they were supposed to leave, he said, you know, I need to go by myself. And she said, screw it. I'm going by myself, Mom. The thing I'm most frightened of in my life is being by myself. I'm going to go by myself. I'm going to figure all this out. And I have to say, as a mother, there were a few things in there that I could have gone without knowing. But I wish, in all the relationship debacle of my early life, I wish I'd had this book. People are going to love this book. Eat, Pray, FML. It's available on Amazon next week.
Yes, thank you so much. Dee Wallace, I'm going to thank you for an entire generation, and thank you for all your work. You completed my childhood. You are just such a wonderful person, both on and off screen, and I'll never be able to repay everything you've done, not only for me, but for millions of other people.
Oh, you are so sweet, and I've got to tell you, this is on the top 5 of the best interviews I've ever had.
Oh, that's very... Now you've made my...
I mean it.
Yes.
I mean it. So thank you.
Dee, thank you so much.
You made it so easy.